eerie morning or magical midnight, wherever, whenever you may be, across the dimensions or around the vibrations. I'm Tillie Treadwell, and oh, have I got a show for you. Won't you join us on The Weird Walk Home? Hello, everyone, and welcome or welcome back. I'm Tillie Treadwell, and today I have with me Chris Evers. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hi, Tillie. I'm absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Just want to wish everybody over there in the US of A, the United States of America, a happy New Year. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much. And I agree. I would like to also wish everyone a very happy holiday season. I know that for me, it's been a merry one. What about you?
It's been a lovely, nice, quiet one. We've visited a few family. We've had a few friends over. Other than that, it's a pretty traditional British TV. Sat down, eating as much as you can and watching the television.
Well, we have that in common here. We did a lot of the same, and our fridge is still packed with the leftovers.
Well, yeah, the cat usually gets them here.
Lucky kitty indeed. All right, so for anyone who may be unfamiliar with yourself and your work, would you please tell us who you are, what you've accomplished so far, and then what you
Okay,
plan on doing here in the near future?
okay. Um, my name's Chris Evers. I've been interested in the subject of ufology since my own experience, way back in the mist of time, makes me a dinosaur. Uh, I'm actually been interested in the subject since February 1974, when I was
Really?
14 years of age. Yeah, so next year, 2024, which is as we do this, is just right around the corner. That'll be my 50th year of interest in the ufology subject. Um, what started it all off, I had a strange experience where I saw something unusual in the sky. It was an early February evening. We've just come home from school. We'd had our evening meal, our supper, I suppose you'd call it. We'd call it our tea over here. And I just asked my mum, excuse me, asked my mum if we could go out and play for an hour or so before it got really too late. And we'd been particularly lucky with the weather, to be quite honest. We'd had no rain and no snow or anything. So anyway, a group of lads we got together, roughly equal numbers on each side, and we decided we wanted to play not with computer games or laptops or mountain bikes or anything like that. Back in those days, we were lucky to have a transistor radio and a stick to play soldiers, guns with. And
Yeah.
basically, that's what we were doing. We were out one early evening in the February of 74. We were split into two equal teams playing soldiers, and I was hiding away with my team on top of a mound of mud. It was dry mud because, as I said, we've been pretty lucky with the weather conditions. And I'm looking. We live in the city of Kingston upon Hull, which is where the Humber Bridge is, which was at one time the longest single span suspension bridge in the world. Anyway, we're hiding away. I'm looking from my area of the city,
Mhm.
which is more or less in the northeast of the city, and I'm looking to the southwest, which is where the Humber Bridge was being built at the time, and I noticed a speck of light flicker on and flicker off. I'd say flicker, but it was quick. I don't know if you can see that properly, but it's quick as a
I
flash,
can. Mhm.
And anyway, didn't think anything of it. Noticed this flash of light, carry on
Sure.
hiding. I'm going to jump up and shoot my friends. We're going to win the game. Anyway, a couple of seconds, should I say, later, it blinked again, but this time it had moved closer to me. Still blinked at the same speed, and then blinked out, and bit more interesting, what's going on. And
Mhm.
then I saw another something else that blinked in position one, then position three, then it jumped back to position two, blinked again, then forward to position four. So it jumped across the sky, kind of leapfrogging over itself. Anyway, as I said, it was a lovely, clear, February evening, not a cloud in the sky, beginning to get frosty. Anyway, we're looking up. You could see all the star field. Not a single cloud up there. Eventually, this light blinked its way across the city where we lived, so that it was above the position where I was hiding. So at this point, I jumped up and I shouted to my friends, "Hey, look, guys, there's a UFO in the sky," or "Look, guys, there's a UFO." Anyway, as I shouted that, and remember, not a single cloud in the sky, and in the direction it should have been traveling in, it never appeared again. It simply blinked out and was gone, never to be seen again. And it was that kind of got me interested in the subject. So from that, I started reading books by people like uh, Major Donald Kehoe. UFOs are real, all those kind of things. I got interested in what we had events over in Great Britain, things like the Warminster Thing, which was a series of events which actually lasted in the town of Warminster, and these things occurred for a period on and off for about 10 years. Anyway, I got interested in all that kind of information. I was looking for an answer to what I had experienced. And back in 1990s, back in around about 1997, by this time I'd set up the whole UFO Society and was running sky watches. But on this particular sky watch, it was just myself and two other people who went out to the back of the British Aerospace factory in a small village on the northern bank of the River Humber, which is where Hull is situated. And they used to build aircraft there. In fact, they still do build aircraft there. And, they're quite involved with the British aerospace industry, make things for Tornado jets and so on, all the modern jets as well. Anyway, the three of us have stood there because we was in a UFO society. Of course, we took all our video cameras. We set everything up on the banks of the river. We was there about an hour and a half, 2 hours, not a single thing. We put all the videos away, and as we did that, on the opposite bank, down like not a cliff face, but a large hill to the river. And at this point, the river, it's actually an estuary, is about 1.5 miles wide. Anyway, this light came down, come onto the river, seemed to float, and then I'm watching it go to my right. And as I'm watching it, went about another maybe 2.5 miles down the river, and it blinked out. So I turned to my two friends. I said, "Oh, it's gone. It's blinked out." "No, it hasn't," they said. "It's going to the left under the Humber Bridge." So it'd come down, split into two, and gone in two separate directions. So that was like the second sighting I had while I was running the whole UFO Society. Anyway, I left the subject for about 10 years or so, back in the early noughties. And I got reinterested back in the early teens, the 20 teens. And I decided at this point that I was going to get back involved. I started reading up information, familiarizing myself once again with the events that were going on. All the usual things were there: Roswell, Rendlesham, and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, after a couple of months, I just got to thinking, I'll do a little newsletter for people. And that has eventually turned into Outer Limits magazine. The first 16 of these newsletters, I only do 6 a year. So, and the first 16 of them were completely free, but it was taking over my life. I was devoting more hours to looking for articles for this newsletter than I was, well, basically knocking on doors, working, basically. So, which was good because I've always been interested in the subject. But it's now a subscription only publication. And the issue I'm working on at the moment is issue 48. So very soon we'll be up to our 50th issue.
Yes.
And as part of coming back to do that, I basically, as I said, I was swatting up on information, for familiarizing myself with some of the more recent cases and information. And to cut a long story short, really, because it has gone on a bit, I basically, I thought to myself, well, this will come in handy, not only as a refresher for myself. So, it doesn't matter if you've been an investigator or researcher for 50 years as I will be very soon, or you've been interested in the subject for 3 months. There is enough information to turn what I was finding out into a book, which is precisely what I've done. And that book was published on December the 1st this year, 2023.
Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you very much. It's been a long journey and it was a long story, but at least I got there.
You did indeed, and I think that you've done a phenomenal job. Pun intended. Pun absolutely
That's
intended.
okay.
You had sent me a few issues of Outer Limits, and to my audience, I highly recommend them. I loved them in a way that I've not really loved a lot of material that people have put out. And I don't want to give a lot of spoilers because it is, like you said, um, it's a paid subscription now.
Yeah.
But if you do have the money to spare, and if you are interested in these subjects, I would highly recommend subscribing to Outer Limits magazine. And I loved what you had put together so much that you had recently released a video ad essentially, and I started sharing that around because I'm that impressed with what you've had to say. And now, of course, I've got you on the show. So this is a full endorsement from the Weird Walk Home and from myself. Even if we don't necessarily agree on everything, I do think that you hit on some really important aspects of this type of phenomena. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today.
Yeah.
About your research and your findings, your theories, your thoughts, just giving you essentially a blank slate to just guide us along. Yeah, so please.
I'll give you a bit more information, Tillie, if people are interested in it. You can subscribe. You can buy individual issues, which, forgive me, not in dollars, they're in pounds. Obviously, being British, of course. They start at £3.90 for a single issue. Okay. And that is anything from 80, 85 to 100, 105 pages of information, A4 in size, but it's all PDF based and it's emailed straight to your own inbox. So you don't have to go up to the corner store and pick it up and read it or anything like that. It's there and it's out every 2 months. It begins in February, carries on to April, goes on to June, and so on and so forth. And you get that yearly, if you want to subscribe yearly. A yearly subscription, including a Stripe fee. Stripe fee works like PayPal. It's exactly the same. You don't have to have an account with them to use it, including the Stripe fee, if I can get the words out correctly, is at £10.50, which I think is roughly $15 or $16. There's something round about there, if I'm correct about that. Then you can also subscribe for up to 2 years, where you'll get 12 issues, or you can subscribe up to 3 years. 2 years subscription is, forgive me if I'm incorrect, £19.50 or £18.50, going up to £27.50 if you want to subscribe for 18 issues up to 3 years. And the magazine itself, Tillie, as you know, it actually covers not just ufology, but it also covers things like big cat sightings. Yeah. We don't have any natural big cats in the United Kingdom. Nothing here that is allegedly, prowling the countryside looking for food, etc. But there have been plenty of reported sightings of puma-like animals or jaguar-type animals over the years. So we'll get all that kind of information in. I get information from MUFON in the United States. There's L. Gray Anderson, who's, I think, is the Southern California state director. He provides articles on a regular basis. We've got other people from MUFON as well who actually supply information. And I'm extremely grateful for that, because I understand that's a bit of a rarity for MUFON to do that and send information out. So again, thank you, MUFON, if you're listening. We cover everything that is paranormal, but with my own interest, I do tend to concentrate just a little bit more on UFO accounts, UFO stories, and they're in there from all around the world: South America, Europe, China. I've had them from Japan, and the subcontinent, India, and all places, and of course the United States and Canada and
Mhm.
Mexico.
Yeah, yeah.
We even had some information in quite recently about the Heimi-Musan alien mummies as well that is going on about at the moment. So yeah, we
Oh,
try
yeah.
and cover everything.
Yes. And I don't know how much you want to give away about what all you cover. I can say I work with MUFON too, and Chris Harmon is becoming a good friend of mine, and I've had him
Mhm.
on now a few times, and we do other things together. And um, I'm going to be working with yet another MUFON superstar here shortly, and I really love that you and your magazine incorporate not just your own beliefs and theories and information, but you bring in these people from MUFON as well as others, and you cover a vast variety of
Yeah,
topics and viewpoints. And I have never seen I don't know if you'd call it ufology or like a paranormal magazine that is just so well rounded, in my opinion, up to my standards. And I find that thoroughly impressive and consistent. So bravo to you, sir.
thank you very
Bravo
much.
indeed. My pleasure. But
One of,
um
I'll just let you. One of the taglines that I have, publications you have strap lines, sell, yeah, buy it
sure,
because of X, Y, or Z, or Z if you want to call
sure.
it that. One of the things I say is be informed, and
Mm,
to me, you cannot be informed if your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. So you've got to look at all aspects of the different phenomena, different types of phenomenon, and
mhm.
you can then make your mind up with a good educated guess. Now, I will put some things into the magazine that I don't necessarily personally believe in. But if
And I
somebody,
like that very much.
well, if somebody has got something they want to say, I don't know, about big cats, for example, then if it's readable, it's well presented,
Yes.
and I will put it in the magazine, and I encourage people, if possible, to message me back with any emails if they want to make any comments. I every now and again put a cry out on my Facebook page for the magazine, which is the Outer Limits magazine on Facebook.
Right.
You can, if you want to, you can see me. Right, guys, I need some articles. Send them in. So occasionally I'll do that, and I'll get people to send things in, and we've had all kinds of different things. And yeah, as I said, from UFOs over a lake in China to, well, big cats crawling up the hills in the Bearwind Mountains in the United Kingdom.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and there's just so much fertile ground to cover within the paranormal sphere. And it's such a fun adventure, at least in my opinion, that you guys put out all of these different um, theories and thought patterns and observances that you're not pigeonholed
Yeah,
into one train of thought. So when Tim Swartz and I began this channel, we began this show, he and I have a more Fortean outlook on this
yeah,
type of material, and all of my personal experiences have been um, more along the interdimensional or intervibrational bend. But that doesn't at all mean that there's not physical
yeah,
phenomena going
yeah.
on in the
Well,
classes right here.
I'm just a little bit more old fashioned. I think it really it's because I was brought up on the subject, as I mentioned earlier on the Donald Kehoe,
Yeah.
NICAP kind of outlook to it, and with the Warminster thing, which was actually, if I remember the Warminster, well, for some reason in my head, I've got this vision of an Adamski type craft being the Warminster thing, but unless I'm getting that mixed up. I mean, when you get to my age, I've got an excuse.
Yeah,
But
yeah. 35, right?
yeah, 35. Yeah, I had a real good paper round. Anyway, I'm a little bit more nuts and bolts with the subject. If somebody wants to, try and show me interdimensional craft traveling through portals or anything like that, then fine, great. But
Sure.
they're all brilliant theories. In fact, my theory of a nuts and bolts craft is precisely that. It's a theory. I can't show you that. I can't show you that for real, but I can say, well, oh, hang on a minute. What about what Lenny Zamora saw when it landed
Yeah.
in the desert over there in America?
Yeah.
What did Kenneth Arnold say when it was, things were flying around Mount Rainier?
Yes.
He saw something nuts and bolts. So, in fact, when he saw that, and this kind of leads on to my book in a little way. He described what he thought were a couple of secret American aircraft flying around the mountains in Mount Rainier. So he actually mentioned that there were two distinct shapes. And the most famous one, of course, was the crescent-shaped one, which looked like a bat wing, more or less. That kind of thing
Yeah.
going round to the
Yeah.
front. So that kind of like leads on to my book, The Shape of Things to Come from Elsewhere.
Yeah. Yes. And I can't wait to get my hands on that. I admit that I have to be a little bit conservative with my budget for now, but when I do get a chance, I'm going to pick that up because even though it doesn't necessarily perhaps align with all of my own beliefs, I really want to hear what other people have to say because there does seem to be evidence that some of this really could be purely physical. So, and then that could get into maybe say hybrid human hybrid programs with the government or the secret governments or whomever and technology that the general public doesn't know about. There's just so much room for questioning
Yeah.
the status quo and
What
for
you have to remember, though, Tillie, is the book just doesn't cover the typical Adamski type Venusian type craft. I go back, one of the first sightings that I've actually mentioned in the book is the Emperor Constantine sighting of a flying cross, which was round about the year, I can't remember if it's 312 or around about 320, somewhere
really?
around about that time period anyway, where, my own belief with that is that it kind of like stretch the truth a little bit in that he was looking to be emperor of the Roman Empire, and I think Christianity at the time was becoming the major religion in the Roman Empire, so he kind of like used it a little bit for his will, basically, so he could subjugate many people in the empire, but what if he did see a flying cross in the sky? Because there are reports of flying crosses right up to this day. The
Yes.
National UFO Reporting Center, a US based outfit, which is only one outfit,
Mhm.
over there, they have had in their 47 years of existence up to November last year, 2022, over 147,000 reports of everything from flying orbs, flying triangles, squares with triangles inside of them. They've had the classic Venusian type, Adamski type craft. You name it, they've had it. We've had absolutely tons and tons of different sightings of different shapes since the modern UFO era began in 1947.
Mhm. Yes, I do agree with you. I've personally read a lot of stories about people seeing these strange flying shapes. And even myself, I've seen a flying triangle. So I can't discount what other people are saying about other shapes because seeing a flying triangle to me is just as random as seeing a flying cross or a flying cube or square or whatever. I
Yeah.
think that there's really something to it. And that's excellent to know that you cover this type of material in that book. That makes it, I think, even more attractive that you're not just in that one little subject. So this
Yeah,
this should be a good book.
the fact that you've seen a flying triangle, I'm jealous. I've got
Are
to say I'm
you?
jealous. That is one thing I've never seen. All I've seen is like the electric light orb type thing that came down, split into two, and I've seen like a pinprick of light leapfrogging across the sky. So for you to see something like that, I'm jealous. I'm
Really?
just jealous.
You may want to check out my channel because I do talk about lots of experiences that I've had. And even my husband, he never had any paranormal experiences before we got together. But
Yeah,
literally from our first date onward, we've had experiences together. And the flying triangle, he and I both saw that together at the very
amazing.
same time from our bedroom window, and it was really close.
Yeah,
It was actually a little intimidating to me, at least, to be honest with you. Yeah, I had
absolutely,
never seen
absolutely
anything like that
amazing,
before.
amazing. It's
Hmm.
these people who, in the book I mention a sighting that occurred over the English Channel. The English Channel, as you're probably aware, it's it's not a river. It's a, it's a stretch of water that actually flows between Great Britain and France, United Kingdom and France, and
Okay.
its widest point, it's something like 300 miles wide. Its narrowest point, it's around about 21 miles wide, which is
Mhm.
where the Dover to Calais ferries cross. Now, there's somebody took a video of uh, it looks like a square shaped item which is floating above the water. But when you look at the video, I think there's a picture of this in the book. It looks quite a distance away. There's quite a stretch of water in the front of the picture that I've got in the book. So either what they've seen is quite large, quite a distance away to stand up as it does in the image, or it's something really small right close to the camera lens. I don't think it is, but some people have said that's a drone. But I think that was in either 2019 or 2022. Now, I also have another reported sighting from Conyers in Georgia, USA, of something extremely similar. But that's what, 3,000 miles away, 3 years later? So,
Yep.
what is the same type of device doing over the English Channel than, going to the United States? Something somewhere, somebody or something is controlling what these devices are. But when you think about all the different shapes, your flying triangle, my lights, if there was something solid at the the inside of that light or whatever, we've got to look at these devices, the different shapes, as something that, well, if you went out in the year, I don't know, 1905, and you bought a car, a motor vehicle, you'd have
Sure.
something like a Model T Ford. If you went out last night and you bought a car, don't know what you'd get over there in America. That's you
Yeah.
know, but the designs have all changed since we invented cars over 100 years ago. Just as the things that we're seeing with UFOs have all changed as well since the modern UFO era began. And let's not forget, these things go back centuries, if not millennia. Because there's a report of a priest in Japan in round about the year 1200 was going to be beheaded. And while they was preparing his execution and they took him out there, this device, this thing, came and flew into the sky where this was occurring. It's described as moon-like, so round, and silver. Now, when the people who are going to execute him saw this, they let him go free. So again, something completely unusual that was seen in the sky. What's that? 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, yeah. And you're naming these things as devices. I wonder how many of them are devices. How many of them, though, what if this is their biology? As strange as it might sound, what if we do have living rectangles and crosses and stuff? Have you ever seen the movie Nope?
Nope. No, never seen it. No.
Completely fair. So it's about this so-called UFO. It's round.
Hmm.
The people in the movie think that it is a UFO that is abducting their horses and I think their cattle or something like that, and abducting people. But as the movie goes on, they discover that it's not. They discover that it is actually a biological creature or being of
Yeah.
some type that is eating the horses and whatnot. And so sometimes I wonder, what if what if we're maybe approaching this in a little bit too narrow of a
Yeah.
way?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's so hard for me to know because I've only ever had this one experience. And like I've worked with non-human people like the Fae and so-called demons and things like that.
Yeah.
They always have communicated with me directly telepathically, and they've shown me things, and there's physical evidence of them on camera and EVP and things like that.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, don't listen to me probably. I'm just a chick in pajamas chattering away next to my Christmas tree. I could be wrong. I could be crazy. So, anyways, with that disclaimer out of the way, when I had the triangle experience with my husband, we didn't get any type of communication at all. It was the eeriest experience that I've had in a while, a good long while. So, I've noticed that what I would call the interdimensional experiences that I've had with non-human people and non-human animals, etc., it has a far more intelligent and communicative nature. All of that does.
Mhm.
But with the fully physical seeming encounters that I've had, so with the um with the flying triangle, and then with I had a pale crawler or like a rake, I think you call it,
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no kind of communication. It just felt so very bizarre and, to me, unwelcoming. So it seems like maybe there's something even more exotic going on here. And so I'm not uncomfortable with any type of non-human and less physical person or animal, etc. But that flying triangle and the rake encounter really creeped me out.
Well, first of all, there's no definitive answer to what
Yes.
these things are. So all opinions are welcome until proven,
Yeah.
scientifically, that the things that we say they are or believe that they are have been proven to be so. So everybody's entitled to an opinion. And one of the best things is that people can agree to disagree,
Yes.
and at the end of the day, your valid opinion is as valid as my valid opinion.
Absolutely.
So, and that's the end of that. But I've heard stories. Just going back slightly, I've heard stories of I'm going back a few years ago, and I'm sure I read in we had a British version of UFO magazine up until
Mhm.
about 2002. It ran for about going on for about I think it was like 10 years altogether. Anyway, I'm sure I read a report in that at one point of what somebody described as jelly-like floating creatures or objects
Mhm.
floating around the Earth's atmosphere. So, so who's to say that that isn't correct? But having said that, when that was in that magazine at that time, and it was a physical magazine, it wasn't a PDF-based thing or anything. Back in the days before laptops and computers, really. Anyway, I've heard reports of something similar in the city where I live, going back to the
Mhm.
1970s and late 1960s. So who's to say that
Yes.
what you're saying is completely incorrect?
Yeah, it's hard to say, really, and a lot of the time, at least in my understanding and experiences, these types of beings and peoples and creatures, they don't like to be recorded. They don't like to be photographed. And if they allow that, there seems to be a very particular protocol all around that, and they're not very sharing or forthright when it comes to certain types of
Mm.
information. So who knows how much humanity can really discover, or for anyone who's living here in this physical dimension, who knows really what can be discovered? Maybe there are limits based on our own perception, and it's so hard to tell.
Yeah.
But something that your story reminded me of, um, I had another interesting sky experience. This was with my husband as well. Um, do you know what the application on the phone Sky Map is, or Sky Safari?
Could you repeat that, please?
Have you ever heard of the app Sky Map or Sky
Yes. Yes.
Safari?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So this happened this last July. My husband and I were out having a bonfire in our backyard, and this was around 9 o'clock p.m. We were just sitting there really enjoying cooking some weenies and marshmallows and whatever. It was kind of like for our summer festival. We have
Mhm.
our own little holidays and whatnot. Well, out of the blue, I just felt like someone was watching me, and I couldn't quite shake this feeling. And so I looked around the sky and I felt like I needed to say hello to whomever was there and at least acknowledge them in a friendly manner. And I did. And I was essentially pondering who could this be? Who is this? And my attention and my eyes were automatically drawn to what my phone was showing me to be Venus, the planet Venus. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, and maybe I'm making it up.
Mhm.
And as soon as I was thinking this, the planet Venus, right before my eyes and my husband's eyes, began to drift backwards and down in
Mm.
the sky. And this took a minute or two, and we watched it in the sky right before our faces. And then we also watched it on my phone app.
Mm.
So the phone app was showing something completely different. The phone app was showing that Venus was perfectly stationary in the sky, that nothing was moving whatsoever. And in front of our faces, Venus was slowly retracting. So my husband, Artemaeus, he got out his cell phone and he pulled up the exact same app. Excuse me. And we double checked both of the apps. We made sure that nothing was glitching or broken or needed updating, anything of that nature. Nope. Showed the exact same thing on two separate types of devices and everything. So he and I just watched it and it disappeared below the tree line in front of our faces. And my husband was like, wow, that was really creepy and very, very strange.
Yeah.
But for me, for some reason, since I was a little child, I believed that the stars and the planets and the moon were all real and were all beings and people. And so for me, I was really excited. Yes, it was
Mm.
very strange and in some ways a little creepy for me, but I'm more excited than not about an experience like that. And then I've also
Yeah.
had seemingly an experience with the moon. And if you'd like, I can tell you about that. But I thought, if nothing else, that you might enjoy this encounter.
Absolutely. The first thing I would ask you, of course, is,
Sure.
if I was going to investigate that, would be, where was your position between? Sorry, was you in a straight line with Venus, and was the fire between you and Venus? Do you know what
Yes,
I'm saying? So,
I do.
so what I'm
Yeah.
thinking is the heat could affect your eyesight in some way to make it look like it was going up and down. That would be I'm not
Original.
saying it was, but that would be the first thing that I would ask.
And I like the way that you're thinking because I thought the same thing. So originally, let's just say I and my husband are over here, right? And then the fire is right here between us. And then,
Yeah,
you know, Venus is there. It was a straight line technically.
yeah,
But we hadn't seen any type of distortion or movement up until
yeah.
this point with anything else. When we saw this starting to move, we moved our position over here so that the fire was not between us anymore.
Got you.
So, and then we looked up and we saw it moving. And no matter where we moved, we could see it moving backwards
Yeah,
away from us. And it was
that's
the only thing in the
fascinating.
sky that was moving.
Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I really don't do a lot of research anymore because I'm just too busy,
Sure.
putting books together. I'm working on my second book at the moment, so I'm kind of like busy doing that all the time, or the magazine, and I've got other things I work and do as well. But that would be the first route I would go down. If that could be disproved, then you're on your way to describing something
Right.
extremely crazy, weird, unusual, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject.
Hmm. And my husband at the time, he wanted to pull out his cell phone to record what was going on. And I just got the intuition, no, please don't. And so I relayed that to him, and we didn't record it. And we just watched as it finished disappearing slowly and intentionally, in my humble opinion. And it was one of the most profound sky experiences I've perhaps ever had in my life.
Quite often, one of the first things that people, if they've had a UFO experience is, I mean, let's be honest, 99.9% of the Western world have got a mobile telephone or a cell phone, if you want to call it that, in the
Sure.
pockets. And all these devices have got cameras on. But when you experience something like that,
Mhm.
a UFO sighting, a ghost, orbs, Venus shimmering. I've actually heard reports of like the moon shimmering as well previously. So when
Mhm.
you experience something like that, you're that enthralled with what you're viewing. The last thing that you think of doing is taking your phone out of your pocket or your handbag or whatever, your purse, whatever you want to call them across there, and,
Yeah,
and picking that up and pointing that in the direction of what's going on, because you don't want to take your eyes off what you're looking at, because you know or you feel that at some point that's going to disappear and it's going to be gone and you're going to lose that experience. you know
sure.
it, it's
Sure.
it's it's kind of, I think Jenny Randalls, who's a British ufologist, used to be with the British UFO Research Association a few years ago. Excuse me. Um, she called it something like the Oz effect, the Wizard of Oz effect. Like, she's gone, she's no longer in Kansas, kind of thing.
Of
And
course.
you get that. Well, yeah, I'm going to look at this. I'm not going to take my eyes off it. I want to see what I'm looking at and make sure that it's real. And that
Mhm.
is how a lot of people view these things, and that is why there's not a lot of decent images of these experiences that people have. I mean, I had an experience. Let me think. There was myself, my wife, and two stepchildren. We were walking down the sidewalk, and we're my wife and kids are like to my left, and to my right there's a high metal fence railings, basically, of a Victorian school on this road that we're walking down. Now we had the railings, then for about 2 foot behind that there was an edge, one of the edges that you clip and outside, just for decoration, basically.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
walking down the road, and we went past this edge, and something grabbed my right shoulder and actually pulled me back.
Really?
Yeah. So that's that. So that's like my first experience. I'm like, I'm ready to turn around and thump it, because oh, the hell's pulling me? What the heck are
Yeah.
you doing? So that
Yeah.
was my first experience of weird, ghostly like things. And then in 2004, my mum passed, and
Mhm.
we cleared the house, and we got everything sorted out, give the keys back to the landlord and all that kind of stuff. Anyway,
Mhm.
I kept a mirror from the bathroom. It was a fold-away mirror, which was good for having a shave.
Sure.
So, I kept that. Anyway, my wife and I were getting ready to go out one particular, I think it was a New Year's Eve of 2004. And I'm in there getting ready, getting sorted. And when I walked in, looking back at me from that mirror was my mum.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
strange. What was it, just in my head? Could I have taken a photograph of that, to prove life after death, kind of, But we all experience weird, crazy things that we cannot find answers for, like I did 50 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's interesting to me that you bring up the mirror um occurrence, because I've also had it. Well, my husband had an interesting occasion with a mirror, and back when I was working as a professional paranormal investigator and a professional paranormal counselor, I also had many clients talk to me about incidents with mirrors. And over the years, I've come to realize that it seems that reflective surfaces are really important to these
Mm.
non-human people, and seemingly also to the human people who have passed on from this dimension into possibly the next, and who may have, in a sense, become one of those non-human people, and they come back to visit using mirrors. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of lore and stories about human beings dying and becoming the fae or becoming the fairies, or
yeah,
they are seen with these types of people after their passing. And it seems to me like these people are becoming less physical in the way that we think of it here. And so it seems to me that they have to adapt and use the less physical means of communication to reach us here. So,
yeah,
long story short, I believe what you're saying, and it seems
yeah.
highly likely to me that the mirror was being inhabited as a vessel.
Plus,
So,
also, it came from their property as well. So that's, you
exactly.
know, that's it's quite interesting because there've always been tales of people, you know, removing furniture or whatever from
Hmm.
deceased loved ones' homes, you know, and then something happening with those. That's all
Yeah,
part of the paranormal
yeah.
world that we live in. You know, it's crazy.
Mhm, it is. And again, don't listen to me probably. However, I have non-human whom I consider to be friends and essentially family of mine, the jinn, some of them I'm in close contact with, and they have taught me how they see mirrors and how they use mirrors. And what they've explained to me is that when a human person essentially imprints on a mirror for so long, it becomes a super easy access portal.
Mm.
And the fact that your mother owned that mirror for however long, and it was steeping in her energy for probably years, I would imagine. And then you take that, I'm not surprised if she came to communicate with you. That makes all
Mm.
the sense in the world to me.
Yeah.
What do you think, though?
Well, it's a strange one because my mum was actually quite religious, and she was actually a Jehovah's Witness who do
Oh,
not believe in life after death. They believe that once you pass on, you wait in the grave until you're resurrected after Armageddon, and then you're given a new body to live in for about 1,000 years before Christ decides, you know, what's going to happen and so on and so forth. But so she believed in that, and to see her like that, for me, it was quite startling. It really was, you know, and that's I can't remember if it was immediately after or within a couple of years, but my wife and I, we went to a psychic night, a seance kind of night at a local venue around about 10 miles from where I'm sat right now. And when we went in, I mean, I got sat in the front and I had my investigator's hat on at the time, you know, and I'm like, nah, nah, nah,
nah. Mhm.
nah, not at all, nah. Anyway, the person who was doing the readings and so on and so forth, he actually looked at me and he went, "Your mum didn't believe, did she?" So I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to feed it in the
Yeah, feed into
information.
it. In case they're doing
So
a
I
cold
just
reading,
went,
and am.
exactly. I did cold reading, etc. So I just thought, I went, uh-huh. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. Anyway, he looked at me and he went, well, she believes now.
Mhm. Yeah,
So I just
yeah,
thought that was great. You know, that kind of like answered a lot of questions for me at the time. You know, it really did.
exactly.
You know,
That's so fascinating because I was actually going to offer the same type of information. My non-human friends have told me that the way that incarnation works here on Earth, this is the densest place where people come to live out the opposite of what we really are back home, and in less physical dimensions and less physical um, incarnate storylines. So human beings have massive egos. And I mean this in the literal sense, not in the emotionally charged sense, as in they live this one storyline all throughout their lives. And it can be shattered or it can be reinforced, and there's lots of bias within that. And so a human person can go all throughout life believing one very specific religion or whatever it is, but then once they transition past this physical or this what I call this the super physical or the super dense storyline or incarnation, then they are more like their soul essence. And in a way, their incarnation in this storyline can continue, but in my understanding, it changes at least a little bit because they are now closer to our heavenly or home vibration. And that may have been what happened with your mom, and that might have been what he was picking up on. And so when I did my paranormal counseling and whatnot, I did run into a few cases where it seemed that there were families that were being haunted by um, their human family members who had somewhat recently or over the last year passed on, but they couldn't handle the thought that they had passed on. They didn't know how to accept that, and they were still in the super ego even though they were now outside of the super density. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that idea,
Sure.
because obviously, I mean, I'm not a religious person at all. I wouldn't
Right.
necessarily agree with that, but I would defend your right to believe what you wanted to believe. It's as simple as that, really.
I love that attitude. And I agree. I might be kooky. I might be misunderstanding. I don't really know. But I would love to hear your theory on it because maybe that could help me answer some of these questions that I have or understand better.
Well, my belief is once we stop breathing, what we are evaporates and goes basically, and that's the long story cut extremely short.
Okay.
I just think that once we once we're gone, we're gone. It's as simple as that. That's how I view it. Again, if
Okay.
I'm wrong, please prove it.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I can't prove it.
Excuse me.
I do. Oh, for sure. I do agree that you might have a good point. Maybe in some cases that's exactly what happens. I don't really know. All I can personally go off of is what I've seen and what sources that I trust who seem to be non-human and who have a higher grip on that than maybe what we do here have told me. But I admit you might be completely right.
Yeah, that's what it's all part of this thing. It's they say the ufology is a rabbit hole. The whole for different types of phenomena belong down this rabbit hole. So once you go down it, it leads you off into different directions and all the rest of it. So who's to say I'm right? Who's to say I'm wrong? Exactly the same with yourself, Tillie.
I really love that attitude about you, my friend. Thank you very much. Like that alone is just completely worth this conversation.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. So as far as what you've got going on in the near future, do you have anything else coming up of interest? Any new
Oh
developments?
yes, yes. Um, I've got all the speakers worked out for the uh, Outer Limits magazine, the OLM conference
And
2024.
yes,
That is taking place here in the city of Kingston upon Hull in East Yorkshire, in Great Britain, and that's on the 14th of September. And we're doing this at the Hull University, so it's a nice, proper, professional setting and we've got people like these names may not mean anything to yourself or to your viewers and listeners. We've
sure.
got people like Jason Gleaves, ex-RAF. He's a photographic expert. He'll be doing some analysis. We've got Graham Rendell. He's looking back uh, at the Foo Fighters and so on and so forth from the
Okay.
end of the Second World War and coming up in up through the 1940s. We've got one of a twin called Ronald Kinsella, one of a pair of twins by the name of
Yes,
Ronald Kinsella. He'll be doing a talk for us.
yes,
Um,
he and I are friends on Facebook.
oh well, you'll know all about Ron and Phil Kinsella. Then I had Philip Kinsella speak for the first round about just before the first lockdown. Now, to be honest with you, that we
Oh,
had over here. So he spoke, and then I had both the twins at the event last year because obviously we had to postpone it for a couple of years, and this
Sure.
time in 24 I've got Ronald speaking on his own. So there are those guys. I'll be speaking. I'm extremely delighted to say I have a gentleman by the name of Paul Sinclair who's into cryptozoology, strange UFO encounters, animal mutilations, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you have a diet
Right?
drink.
Yeah, I'll just
Anyway,
edit that part out.
that's okay. Leave it in, do it as laugh.
Ah,
Anyway, that's what I would do anyway.
oh,
They're going to be presenting various bits and bobs for me at the conference. I'll be doing a talk, I think, along the lines of something to do with my book that is out now, or I'm
right.
currently working on a book about USOs at the moment, unidentified submersible or submerged objects. And but by that title, I'm not just referring to unidentified flying type objects under the water. I'm including things like sunken cities or supposedly underwater cities. You know, things that have happened near lakes in America, in Canada, in Britain, in Europe, Lake
Wow.
Baikal, which
Mhm.
is in Asia. I'm including stories from there of alleged humanoid type creatures swimming around under the water. I've got a fantastic case from the late 1960s, which a gentleman by the name of Wendell Stevens helped to write a book about back in the late 1960s. Do a bit of research on Wendell Stevens. He was quite an
Okay.
active ufologist, so you might find him
Okay.
interesting. So I'm doing a little bit about that as well. So there's all different kinds of things which are submersible or submerged, which I'm putting into the book. So I'm working on that, and as I say, tickets are on sale for the conference, which they can get, and they can subscribe at www.olm-mag, M-A-G, that's mag, at OLM mag, and I forgot it again now, olm-mag.co.uk. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh
all right.
dear.
I'll put it in the description box for
Yeah,
us.
please do. Yeah.
Of course.
Oh dear me.
Oh, Chris, it's okay. I mean,
I've got an
that's
excuse.
wonderful. I think that you got a lot going for you, and from what I've seen, it is of impeccable quality. And my dear friend, it has been such a joy and an honor to have you here today. And although I am sad that our time today has come to an end, I really look forward to welcoming you back again. And maybe there's some other mischief that we could get into. Yes.
I'm sure we could find some, Tillie. Thank you very much for the time. Great pleasure to speak to you, and hopefully we'll speak again very, very soon. Take care and good night and goodbye to all your listeners and viewers.
Absolutely. And so, everyone, that brings us to an end for today. Until next time, I have been Tillie Treadwell. This is Chris Evers. And from everyone here at the Weird Walk Home and the Outer Limits magazine team, we wish you a very merry morning or a magical midnight.